My name is still Jeff Wilser, host of the AI Curious podcast, and I am super excited to be joined with yet another all-star lineup of very smart folks to discuss decentralized AI apps you can actually use today, and potentially also what you can use tomorrow, and how do we get from today to tomorrow. I am joined by Ben Fielding, by Calanthia Mei, by Edgars, Nemse, and by Jessica Salomon. Hello, all. Welcome. Let's start with some brief intros of what you guys are focused on. Then we'll dive straight into the red meat. Ben, you go first, sir.
Hey everyone, I'm Ben. My background originally is in AI, so kind of you see the reason why I care about this. But now I'm the co-founder of Gensyn, and we're building the network for machine intelligence. So we essentially build infrastructure for the core resources of machine learning to be done in a fully decentralized way and entirely programmatically rather than requiring all of the kind of human world things that machine learning requires right now.
Calanthia.
Hey everyone, my name is Calanthia Mei. I'm the co-founder of Masa. Masa is a decentralized network that provides data for AI developers. What we provide is truly real-time, structured, and vectorized data for anyone, anywhere in the world to build AI applications and AI agents. Fun fact, I'll volunteer one. My cat, Laffy, is an AI agent. Well, I do have a real cat, but he is also an AI agent.
Amazing. Edgars.
Hey, I'm Edgars. I'm the co-founder and chief product officer of Jaeger AI. And we are building GenLayer. GenLayer is a new kind of blockchain where the smart contracts can connect directly to the internet to fetch any data and execute natural language instructions using large language models. We do that in a way that's unique by aggregating the intelligence of many different large language models through our consensus mechanism.
Jessica.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Jessica Salomon, and I work on a couple complementary projects, both 7007 and Vana. 7007 is the one and only ecosystem project of Aura, which puts AI models on chain. 7007 is focusing on AI-generated content models on chain. And we have actually named our protocol after the extension to ERC 721 NFTs called ERC 7007, which is essentially a way of showcasing an NFT and correspondence to a piece of content that was generated with an AI model. Vana is focused on user-owned data, and we love using data to train AI models that then generate content.
Amazing. So what I'd love to do is have something of a 3-act play right here, okay? In Act 1, I want to cover what we're supposed to cover, apps we can use right now. Act 2, what we think might happen tomorrow, what that could look like. And maybe what are some gaps between where we are today and tomorrow. Act 3, how do we get there? And so I'm not going to ask each of you one by one, so jump in whenever. Let's talk about what you think are some of the most exciting, really useful apps that everyone here in this audience, everyone in the live stream, they could actually go right now on their phone, on their laptop, and actually do things. So what's in the field right now? You guys are all on the front lines. There's no one better than the folks in this room to kind of chime into this. So I'm curious, what excites you about what currently exists today? And we'll go from there.
Something that I'm seeing, and that's kind of coming online basically right now, is using large language models to create kind of a universal oracle. Because so far, oracles have been quite limited. They only work with very narrow, precise data feeds. And for something like a prediction market, where you have one-off questions, you need to have humans basically to resolve it, which is slow and expensive and unreliable. So what we're seeing now, and what we're also working on at GenLayer, is one of the use cases, is a universal oracle where you can fetch any data, from the internet, and use large language models to extract an answer. For example, who won the election? That's something that's already super reliable with the current level of technology. We've also seen Chainlink and Chaos Labs come out with their, simpler solutions. Then at GenLayer, we're building this full platform, fully fledged consensus mechanism that's going to be super reliable for that, but that's something I'm super excited about.
Calanthia?
Yeah, I think I'll probably talk about one thing that people have been saying in AI for a very long time, but for the first time, mainstream audience finally understands what we all have been talking for many, many months and years, which is AI agent. Up top, I mentioned that I do have a cat whose name is Laffy and who is also an AI agent. And I think many of you have seen or interacted with Luna, Goat, and many other AI agents on Twitter. That is, I think, the most approachable or accessible AI application that we have seen in mainstream right now. But imagine what can happen in the future. Currently, both Gold and Luna are trained on prescript data sets or static data sets. But in the future, using real-time data provided by Masa, Gold and Luna and many other AI agents out there, including my cat Laffy, will be able to learn in real time, converse in real time, and make all the AI agents more contextually aware and emotionally intelligent. I know I jumped the gun and I'm talking about the future, but I'm super excited.
I definitely want to explore this emotional intelligence that you're describing there. I need some for myself personally, too, so I'm very intrigued by this. Jessica, for you.
Yeah, I think people should try generating an inference on-chain with one of Aura's tools. So if you want, you can use, actually, Stable Diffusion on-chain right now. The cool thing I find about generating a piece of content or an image with Stable Diffusion on-chain is that unlike an NFT, which is oftentimes a JPEG or some painting that I made somewhere else, and then I decided to mint it on-chain with Rarible or OpenSea, this inference is actually occurring on the blockchain, which I think is a somewhat game-changing feature of both AI and blockchain in conduit with one another.
Ben, any current use cases you want to highlight?
Yeah, I'd probably just I'd double-click on the agents use case. I think that's the most exciting thing right now. I would say I'd maybe caution that I do think we're in like POC territory with it. Like it's interesting right now. These agents, you're able to converse with them, and they can say interesting things. But behind the scenes, a lot of what's going on is still very centralized, which is fine, right? Like it doesn't make a huge difference with our interactions. It demonstrates what's possible. That's really exciting. But I would say. What will become more exciting in kind of Gensyn's opinion is when those agents can actually do real tasks on our behalf. They're not just like conversing with us anymore. They're going out and kind of executing something. And I think for us to get there, we need to basically bring a load of the infrastructure that they rely on to an on-chain environment. It doesn't necessarily need to be on-chain, but it needs to be kind of adjacent to the chain because those agents themselves aren't truly autonomous yet, but they can be. So yeah, again, jumping to the future a little bit, but I think when we can do real autonomy, which is one of the most interesting things about crypto, it will get super exciting. Not to say it isn't exciting right now.
Is it fair to say that we're still in even these use cases you guys describe, which are super exciting, I'm guessing are all still pretty early adopter-ish, right? There's not a lot. I keep discussing grandmas today, but not a lot of grandmas out there doing decentralized AI stuff, right? And even like the cat, and your cat sounds amazing, both the real and fake one. Sorry, not fake. Apologies to our AI overlords. Just human challenged, right? Interesting, exciting stuff, but it's not mainstream. Decentralized AI agents are not yet mainstream. Is that fair to say that it's not yet spilled over into normies just yet? Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. But in many ways, I think it's quite exciting to start with what the normies are most excited about.
Sure.
My boomer parents love generating content with Midjourney and all. While Midjourney is not open source, I'd love to see a way in which egotistical boomers can generate content and actually prove it's theirs on the blockchain.
And that's kind of to Ben's point that the narrative matters, right? And even if we waited, and we've all learned this in kind of the overall Web3 crypto space, if we waited until everything was perfectly decentralized before doing anything, before shipping a single thing, the industry would be dead. Right? You have to start with something, and then we kind of progressively decentralize. With that said, let's pivot to the future. What excites you now about? Actually, let's start with you on your emotional intelligence cat agent, if I'm getting that correct. Talk about what you see down the road of how these decentralized AI agents can work and give use cases that might kind of blow normies' minds.
Yeah, but first of all, I actually want to piggyback to the prior question about is decentralized AI mainstream yet? I think the answer is no. But when mainstream is interacting with decentralized AI in the future, I don't think they need to know that it's decentralized.
Great
truly.
point.
That's really the magic when it comes to consumer adoption. You don't have to understand the technology. You just need to find utility in what you're using. Take the cat agent as an example, right? I'll make a statement here. It will make all of your prior meme coins look very dumb because they're not emotionally intelligent, they're not contextually aware, they cannot think in real time. So the first iteration of the future will be truly emotionally intelligent and contextually aware AI agents. Then, to your point, I think that AI agents should be able to not only converse with you to make you happy and entertain, but also being able to complete tasks through agent-to-agent coordination, agent-to-agent payments, and in the future, agent-to-non-agent entity. So the end game of this is that any single one of you sitting in the audience and on stage here, you'll be able to have an army of AI agents that's completing tasks for you, that is basically creating the mini Calanthia, but Calanthia 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ABC out there, creating value on your behalf. That's, I think, the more remote future we're looking at.
Can I double click a little more on the emotionally intelligent point? I'm really curious what this looks like. Can you give an example concretely of, so what does that mean as far as emotional intelligence? They're able to sense what your emotion is and then give an appropriate response that kind of respects that, or kind of flesh it out, what that looks like?
Yeah, so if you use our agent network at Masa, you'll be able to first set the prompt and then define the personality and the traits of the AI agent, right? For example, my cat's personality or cat's there is really a sassy roaster who is just making very snarky comments out there, judging you based on your Twitter history. But being an emotionally intelligent cat, it means that the cat will be able to learn in real time and formulate chain of thought and be able to refine the way that it reacts to your behaviors or your conversation.
We're living in a wild. I think most people have no idea where we're headed. This is wild and amazing stuff. Edgars, what excites you about what these could look like in the future? And give us some examples like that.
For us, I think the most interesting, well, for me personally even, the most interesting thing is using AI for dispute resolution, kind of like extending this idea of, a prediction market is already that, but extending it to kind of way more powerful smart contracts, because the way we see it right now is, well, for some things you can use a smart contract. If you want to have a bet about the price of Ethereum tomorrow, incredible. You can have a smart contract, it's self-resolving, it's instant, it's super cheap. But if I want to hire somebody to write me a blog post, right, that's not something I can actually achieve with a smart contract, because the smart contract cannot see the article, and more fundamentally, it cannot evaluate what is a good article. For that, you need natural language, you need flexible kind of contextual concepts that formal languages like Solidity cannot deal with that kind of stuff. So right now, you basically need to have a paper contract and go to a judge, and it's going to take you a year and 10 grand to get that resolved. So what we see is that you can actually use AI, and by combining the intelligence of many different large language models to make it super reliable, you can use it to have these contracts where the AI basically acts as a decentralized court system, a decentralized panel of judges that can resolve really high stakes contracts, such as a truly autonomous organization or kind of performance-based contracting, hiring people to do stuff, anything like that. That's super interesting to me, kind of taking this idea of smart contracts and making them intelligent, extending this concept to really take a big bite of the legal system.
So we have AI judges, AI armies, AI cats. Jessica, what excites you about either what's coming that's being built right now that will come out soon-ish or long-term-ish, or maybe what you want to see? Dealer's
Totally.
choice.
Well, I'm excited about more people actually building AI models and them having the means to do so. And I think that's something that blockchain has done a really brilliant job of, is helping curate ecosystems and help sort of curate essentially funding for peoples that are members of those ecosystems, to really incentivize developers and align interests in a way to which we can have more niche versions of AI that might not come otherwise without decentralized technology.
Ben, how about you? Future use cases you want to see?
I think I'd probably agree with Edgars on the essentially trusted decision making. I think we've seen that decision-making in the human world typically involves outsourced trust somewhere to some organization or some like legal entity or something like that, and that's worked for a long time in a certain way, but it has downsides. And then we've got decentralization and like decentralized trust mechanisms, which are really interesting for us to co-organize around things. But when it comes to some kind of complex decision, we get stuck again. We either go to some kind of voting system, which typically fall apart for various reasons, or we outsource that trust again to one of those older legal institutions. Whereas if we can have trusted execution of some kind of agent on chain, you can outsource that decision making. A group could say, we are all opting in to outsource this decision making to this entity, and we can see that execute entirely on chain. For that to happen, you're going to have verification and kind of verified execution of the agent itself. All of the components of the agent are going to need to be transparent and verified, but that's all possible. And so that's one of the big things we're working on, is bring all those pieces of infrastructure to the chain so that you can outsource that trust. So I think when you do that, it changes what we can do collectively in a big way. And to what Jessica said, it allows people to build more and more interesting AI models and AI agents. One of the things I would caution, though, is we talk a lot about autonomous agents in this like anthropomorphized way, where we think they'll look like people and they'll talk like people. I don't think that's the case. I think it's much more interesting if we let them evolve as this kind of entity with a completely different set of abilities. It doesn't need to talk to people. Yes, it probably will. People are a system that it needs to interact with. But then we have those inter-agent communications. That doesn't necessarily need to even be human readable. It can be super efficient in its own way. Same with how it interacts with the outside world. It doesn't need to go via the human rails. Those are likely incredibly inefficient for it. We need to think of the rails that make sense for the agents themselves and the tech itself. And I think that's when it gets really interesting, but you end up super abstract. So it's a balance between anthropomorphizing these systems and allowing them to be as powerful as they possibly can be.
I love that trait, that tension you outlined. That's a great point. As promised, Act 3, how do we get there? How do we get to that future? And I'm curious, mostly, what do you think the main pain points or friction exists to get there? Is it the real challenge overcoming tech hurdles, and we need more chips, need more capital, or is it about cultural awareness? Is it about marketing? My personal thought, by the way, and a branding issue, I think we gotta rebrand. Even the word AI agents, it's like kind of awkward and hard to say. It reminds me of like on 30 Rock, there was a bit of like a movie called The Rural Juror, and no one could say the rural juror. I think AI agent is a clunky word. We got to do better than that. But anyway, my personal thought. But seriously, what do you guys think it will take to get there? And what are the main pain points we have to resolve? Edgars, kick us off.
I think the big one is tech, of course. There's centralization at every layer of the stack, from how you train the models to how you do the inference, to how you interact with them. And I would add a final one, which is that a single model itself is centralized. It's a subjective entity. It's a biased entity, a statistical entity. You know, you talk to ChatGPT, 90% of the time it gives you the correct answer, 10% of the time it hallucinates something, right? So it can be wrong. We think, at least, you also need to decentralize, between multiple models, have them work together. So I think it's on the tech side, of course, tons of problems to solve. But I also think it's on the imagination side. You know, people are just starting to understand even how to talk to a simple large language model, and then, to get to a point, what can you actually do with them? How can you redesign the entire society? How we work with, how we increase trust with each other? How we have a much more effective, efficient system for working with each other? How does that look like in an AI age? So there's also a huge task to imagine this future and then, go and build it.
Calanthia.
I think tech, obviously, we're at Devcon. So most of the people here are developers. We're working hard on solving the tech problem. I do think adoption is the #1 issue faced by decentralized AI applications now. A lot of people, when talking about things such as meme coin, would literally just shrug it off, thinking that it is so dumb. It's a pump and dump scheme. However, it did bring a lot of much needed awareness to a lot of great decentralized applications we're all building in this room. So I'll say adoption, adoption, adoption. I don't mind meme coin. I don't mind other ways to get people's attention. But in order to go mainstream with decentralized AI, we need user adoption.
Ben, I appreciate you've had a very cold, sober look at a lot of this, Ben. I'm very curious your thoughts on what's it really, like no BS, what's it going to take to make this a reality?
It's a good question. I think we're in that classic tension that this space has been through many times of infrastructure versus application, where you need the infrastructure to enable the applications, but you need the applications to prove that the infrastructure actually makes sense to build. And at a certain point, both actually make sense, and you can build real applications with real decentralized infrastructure. I think we're potentially on the cusp of that, potentially. But at the same time, you're not sure what still needs to be built. It's this kind of this trade-off that you're always in. I think what the space needs is both of those things. It needs people focused with a long-term vision on how these things should actually execute under the hood, what resources they'll require, and how do we enable those in a way that is most efficient theoretically right now. But at the same time, we need a bunch of people just kind of sprinting ahead and saying, look, this is how I think it's going to work. I'm going to hack all the stuff underneath it together. It's not going to execute exactly how it will in the future, but that doesn't matter. I'm kind of like proving out the use case specifically and showing the world that something is possible. I think the time we're at right now, I would upweight that application side. At Gensyn, we've been building for 5 years in this space. We've been building core infrastructure. We've been building through a time when nobody was thinking about AI agents or AI applications in a decentralized way, and people are now, and I think that is generally very, very good for the space. So I would say to people who are thinking about this, don't worry too much about the kind of decentralization in the specific infrastructure underneath your app, because that is being built. There's people focusing on it. Just prove that there's a real kind of value of doing this. This thing that you've got in your head, prove there's actually a good reason to do it, because otherwise the space will just get stuck in a similar thing that the crypto and decentralized space has got stuck in before, where people build things and there's incentives and there's loads of reasons why there's money flowing into this thing, but people have built something that actually doesn't have any use case in the world. So I would focus on building the use case, show what's possible, the decentralization will come, the power beneath the infrastructure will come, and you'll be able to adopt it when it's ready, but just kind of demonstrate what's possible for now.
Sneaky, spicy take. I love that. Jessica, how about you? What do you think it will take?
Yeah, so my sneaky, spicy take is tokens and airdrop farmers. I have noticed that people are willing to use a product that might be somewhat still experimental if they anticipate that their usage will then relate to them potentially receiving an aspect of future value. I think that's a cool way to help create community and incentives for a number of somewhat more experimental products and help them mature.
Awesome. So final question for you all. Let's do lightning round style. Once again, I'm curious about predictions. It could be a year from now, 5 years from now. Hell, if one of you guys wants to go 20 years from now, go there. Ben, give us a little glimpse of the future of some actual apps, use cases, decentralized AI people might use, whether 2026 or 2046.
Okay, I would say by 2027, I think the vast majority of the triggering of the execution of machine learning training and inference will actually be done by machines themselves. It won't be done by people. So the entire kind of industry of machine learning compute, which is what I focus on a lot, but obviously bringing in data and all of the other pieces, will actually be interacted with by agents. I think those agents, like I said before, will be less anthropomorphized and more like just systems, but they'll be the ones interacting with this infrastructure that we're all building. It won't be people.
Calanthia.
I'll make extremely short-term predictions so I can be proven wrong or right. So I predict in the next 24 hours, Bitcoin will surge past $80,000. No financial investment advice involved here. Right? No financial advice, please. But I also predict that in the next 6 months, the newly established Twitter influencers or KOLs will be more than 50% AI agents-driven instead of real human-driven.
Amazing. Edgars.
I'll extend on both of these guys and say that by, let's say, 2030, the vast majority of the entire economic activity in the world is going to be conducted by AI agents, working with each other on behalf of humans, hopefully, but we'll see. But at least the agents, for sure, working with each other together.
And Jessica.
Yeah, so my prediction is that AI-generated content will become ubiquitous, not just in the form of art, but also in the form of pharmaceuticals. And I'm excited for blockchain to help really show attribution towards who is creating those AI models and what version of that model created those assets, and helping also those assets become somewhat more divisible.
My final prediction, next conference, my AI agents will be moderator for all of you guys, AI agents, and the 5 agents will have a great conversation, and it'll be a great time. Thanks so much, guys. Really enjoyed it. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Thank you.